Yeah. Yeah. Because I sent you a. Well, I didn't know there was lunch, so I ate
You ate before. Yeah, usually if we have something over lunchtime in person, then we have lunch here. Yeah. But we do sometimes get a little, we get a little stuck in our ways if we do one thing a whole lot. So if you don't like syrup or muffaladas, we do those a lot too.
The neurologist.
They're both good.
Really, actually, it's whatever Ellen and I are craving that day.
And number one is what I picked up for my husband for lunch today.
That's funny.
Yeah, he's got something that's gonna lose. Oh, I know. It's like it's
It's messy. Good. Good. Messy.
I love Sarah. They go to, she's complaining about those things. The lady. Right on Jefferson going to be doing. You're probably, you're not the guy. It's probably. Jefferson. Right near.
No, I've seen it. That's how I got here early. That was the thing I had to find St. Peter's Hall, which I found. But then trying to figure out how to make.
What happened on occasion to her?
I had a medicine donation.
They take medicine donation? Oh, downtown.
That expired. So I got downtown and just flew right downtown. That big, so I'm all pick up the nurse and go downtown. Found the place, but then I couldn't find the pharmacy.
Right.
So
There I usually is, but I had got asked somebody. Usually.
well, I started to found the block. There's the number. Backed up, backed around the corner.
And they would have sent me an email.
Because the GDA is gonna be like, change.
For Halloween.
I got rid of it, it was expired. Expired.
Oh, I took the picture.
Well, I had it in the hospital. And dropped that all off Saturday after.
You mean, buy it off? But she must have.
Then, but I can.
Oh, they might have taken them already. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the presentation, but afterwards I need to. I think there was some code here in there too, if they weren't all grabbed yet. Too. Yeah, we can grab you whenever. Alrighty, everybody, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's 12 on the dot. So we do kind of like normal have people joining us through Zoom as well. So you might see me looking up here towards the camera. And I have Ellen in one of our side offices making sure our audio is good. So it might sound like I'm yelling sometimes. So it's just because we want to make sure people on the Zoom can hear us as well. Welcome, everybody. So glad that y'all joined us today. I'm very excited about this presentation. This is our first part of our fall Making Sense of Sense series, and our first official event of Alzheimer's Awareness Month. We have a very busy month this coming up in November. You have some little cards in front of you that have all of our different activities that we have going on this month. And for those who are virtual, I'm going to send that out in a follow-up email just so y'all can see all of those good things as well. For those who are joining us via Zoom, your calls are going to be muted throughout the presentation. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat box. If for some reason you can't hear me, put it in the chat box and they'll let me know to turn or speak louder or whatever. My name is Brooke. For those of y'all who don't know me, I'm a program coordinator here at Alzheimer's Services. My love for older adults, if y'all don't know a lot about me, started whenever I was in elementary school. I went to school across the street from a nursing home, and I used to go there and do service projects, and just ever since then, loved hanging out with older adults. Throughout grade school, I actually became a Charlie's Place volunteer, which is my first introduction to Alzheimer's services, and I was a hospice volunteer, the only person in my high school that wanted to do that. Can you believe that? But I have worked as a private caregiver. I've worked as an activity director at a local assisted living, and I've worked as a client liaison at a local income care agency. So I've kind of made my rounds throughout some different pieces of the sector of this field. And while I enjoyed all of those roles that I've my favorite aspect of all of those jobs was equipping caregivers with resources and support so that they felt less alone. Just talking with caregivers, providing information, providing support has always been my favorite part of my job, to better encourage and support caregivers and provide extra people in their village, if you will. So almost 2 years ago, I started my role here at Alzheimer's Services, and one of my main tasks as a program coordinator is connecting caregivers with resources and anything that may benefit them in their caregiver journey. So throughout that time and throughout my career, I have always kept little nuggets in my head of things to share to people, and that is kind of where this presentation comes from, is, all of the things that I would want to tell somebody right off the bat and not overwhelm them. That's what today's going to be. The presentation today contains a lot of information, I will say, and some of it may not apply to you based on the parish that you live in or the diagnosis that your loved one has. Some of these different organizations kind of cater to one diagnosis versus another. But if your eyes ever start to glaze over because there is a lot of info, I'm going to send you virtually a copy of this presentation. There's a lot of phone numbers and websites and stuff on here, so don't worry about having to write it all down quickly or screenshot it. I'm going to send it to you so you'll have all of it. And of course, if you have additional questions after today's presentation, this is my whole job, is talking with caregivers and providing information to you. So you can always give me a call here, and I'm happy to connect you with one of these resources, or if it's a different organization, I can connect you with our contact over there. So that's a little bit of an introduction for me. So we're going to go ahead and get started on the presentation. I hear often, it takes a village, or Alzheimer's is a disease that affects the whole family. I, of course, believe these two statements, and yet I see that so many caregivers feel alone, and they feel like they're doing this by themselves. How do you find a village? How do we ask for help? Or even, what do I need help with? How do I even know I need help with something? So today, that is our mission, to answer some of those questions. And I'm going to go through a lot of available programs for you to add to your caregiving arsenal. And at the very end of the presentation, I'm going to open up the floor to where, if you have a resource that has really impacted you and benefited you that you feel like should be added to this list, you'll have an opportunity to do that as well. Alzheimer's Services, of course, is happy to be a part of your village. It's the whole reason why we're here. And I'm going to be explaining a lot of our different programs that we have here and that we offer, and they're kind of scattered throughout the presentation. So what do I mean whenever I'm referring to a village? I'm referring to the supportive systems around you that help you feel less alone and help you feel capable of continuing the difficult task of being a dementia caregiver. Support villages, of course, can be your friends and family, but having topics like these up here that we're going to talk about are programs that are set up specifically to support you as a caregiver and specifically to support your loved one who has the diagnosis. So the things that we're going to talk about today are the Council on Aging services in each of our 10 parishes in our service area. the Capital Area Agency on Aging, different free educational resources, caregiver respite resources, mental and emotional support, some medical support, financial support, and some free fun. Of course, the presentation is a part of our Making Sense of Sense series, and so I will be referring to how a lot of these programs help financially to keep us in theme. All right. So Alzheimer's Services has a service area of 10 parishes. And each of these has their own council on aging. So I'm going to go through each parish now and just make note, if you want to, of the phone number of the parish that you live in. These are free resources for you. Council on Aging services are available for persons 60 and over in that parish, and some of the programs tend to change over time depending on what the funding is in that particular parish. So I got all of these within the last month to week, and so all of these programs should be as up to date as possible. But from year to year, sometimes they change. So first up, we have East Baton Rouge. You'll see that all of these different Council on Agings have these senior activity centers, but they all have different hours of operation. These are meeting spaces where Council on Aging staff hosts daily lunches, games, crafts, wellness expos, and seasonal parties. For homebound participants, they can deliver meals to your home. And then some of these Council on Aging, really cool, they can also deliver to your home incontinence supplies. The East Baton Rouge Council on Aging has a food pantry service that is also available, and they have the ability to assist with utility bills for those that might be a challenge. So that is East Baton Rouge. We're going to kind of roll through all of them. Next up, we have the Ascension Council on Aging. We are a big fan here of the Ascension Council on Aging. They have a really wonderful staff there and a really robust program in Ascension. So if you live in Ascension and don't currently utilize these programs, what you doing? Get with it. They're fun over there. They have Zumba classes. They have all sorts of stuff. So they similarly have an activity center. They have home delivery meals. They can assist with Medicaid enrollment if needed. So if you wanted kind of a professional to help you out with some guidance doing Medicaid enrollment, they can help there. They also have utility bill assistance. They provide transportation not only to their activity center, but also to doctor's appointments. I don't think a lot of people know that some of these Council on Agings do provide transportation to and from doctor's appointments, which I know is a challenge for some people with their loved ones with dementia. They have a telephone check-in system that can support with acquiring medical equipment and can support with acquiring medical equipment like wheelchairs and walkers. So their telephone check-in system, they call, check in, just provide an extra set of ears around if you need some support, and then help acquiring any type of medical devices that you would need within the home. They have a emergency button medic alert system that you can sign up for. And then also, this is really neat, and I don't know if a lot of people utilize the service, but they have a housekeeping and personal care assistance program. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that with a different Council on Aging, but that is a great service to utilize if you are in Ascension. Next up, we're going to talk about West Baton Rouge. They similarly have the activity center, transportation, home delivery meals, incontinence supplies. They have a food pantry. They have utility bill assistance and light housekeeping services. They also, as it is unique to them, they can provide a box fan to you for those hot months if you need a box fan. So that's one of their current services they have. Next up, we're going to talk about both of the Feliciana parishes. I'll let you take a peek at these while I talk about two different things with West Feliciana. I want to point out that they have a nutrition and education and exercise programs at their activity centers. They were really proud of those whenever I was talking with them. Many of the different activity centers offer exercise as a part of their regular programming. So if that is something that you're interested in and wanting to do within a group, you can call your local council on aging and ask them for their activity calendar, and then you can see what you're interested in at that time. West Feliciana also does a really cool program where they offer farmers market coupons. So if you like going to the farmers market and you're over 60 plus and you live in West Feliciana Parish, you can use that credit to any local farmers market, which I think is pretty neat. Next up, we have Point Compete. They have a really cool program for Point Compete Parish that's different than the other caregiver personal care assistance programs. They have a caregiver respite program, which actually extends to more hours. So if you live in Point Compete, I really encourage you to call about that program. They also provide personal care services, homemaking services, and can do some medication management for you. That is definitely something to utilize. And then, of course, St. Helena has some of those same parishes and same programs that we've seen with some other parishes. Here are the Livingston Council on Aging programs. They have a legal assistance program, which none of the other ones have kind of spotlighted, but I do think that's really interesting because I find that through this process of caring for another person, you're going to have legal questions, and so that is one of their assistance programs that they do. They also have a yearly home repair allowance that they allot to you, so if you need some home repairs, that's something that they can help pay for, which is really nice. One of the topics that we talk about a lot at Alzheimer's Services is caregiver respite, and how caregivers need an extra set of hands around the house sometimes just to take a break. And these housekeeping and personal care services are a great free option to look at. Even if you have some other sitters lined up, you know, just some extra people in your village to help you out, something that is already afforded to you through our tax dollars, so use it. So that is Livingston. Moving on to Assumption. This is our second to last one. They have some of the same programs, of course, that we've been seeing. I want to again point out the homemaker services. I would love some extra help in my house doing laundry and dusting, and nobody deserves more support in their day than a caregiver. So taking off some of these small tasks from your to-do list definitely can be helpful. And I also love that a lot of these council on aging help with incontinence supplies, even if it's just 1 pack a month. Those things are expensive, and so kind of, you know, taking those things where they add up definitely could be helpful. And a lot of these council on aging, they will ask what, you know, size your preference is, what brand your preference is, so you can kind of, you know, cater it to what specifically you're needing. So definitely worth a call to them. And then lastly, we have Iberville Council on Aging, and that's some of those same services that we've been seeing. So I hope if you do not already utilize some council on aging services, that you've heard something today that you're interested in checking out. Definitely a resource that, you know, you may have heard of in passing, but if you don't currently use them, it could be something you're interested in. Definitely wanted to include those services. All right, so next up, our next program we're going to talk about to add to our village is the Capital Area Agency on Aging. I grabbed this description of theirs right from their website, so I'll read it to you. The agency serves as an advocate and provides leadership on behalf of the elderly in the 22 parishes that they serve. The agency's primary purpose is to develop systems designed to assist older persons in leading independent, meaningful, and dignified lives in their home and community as long as possible. And I'm going to point out a few of these different things. One of the things that I really like that they offer here is Medicaid Part D counseling. I know whenever my parents have helped their older friends do the whole Medicare thing, it's confusing. There's a lot of letters, there's a lot of different parts of it. So having some professionals who are not biased and who can, just tell you how the roadmap is can be very helpful. So I really appreciate that they have that program. They have an Aging and Disability Resource Center. They have this Senior RX program that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. They have a community service employment program. So if you are an older adult and wanting to enter back into the job force and need some additional training, that is one thing that they do. They have different wellness programs. They do some caregiver respite funding. They are actually one of the funders of our respite reimbursement program. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But just to, they do have that service. We're on their website and everything like that. They provide some legal services. They have a long-term care ombudsman through their program that I'm going to talk about in the next slide. And they also work alongside some of the Council on Aging, not every single one of them, but you will see that they're kind of intertwined with some of them throughout their service area. So I do want to mention some things that are provided to us by our state. The state of Louisiana provides support for older adults through our Office of Elderly Affairs. And I'm going to talk about some of the different programs that they have. This is the website. Whenever I send it on to you, you'll be able to click to it. But they have a ombudsman program, and the purpose of that program is to investigate and resolve complaints made by or on behalf of residents at long-term care facilities in our state. So having worked in long-term care before, it is nice to know that we have an extra representative to support our residents. And if you ever needed to connect with somebody, this is our service area's contact, Miss Peggy. That's her contact information there. Home and community-based services, which are Medicaid waiver programs. That is also through this office. You can find the whole list of them on their website. I'm going to talk about a few of them later in the presentation, but mainly they are different waiver programs for professional caregivers within your home or services like an adult daycare for your loved one. And then, of course, Elderly Protective Services is also through this office. You'll likely hear it called EPS. That is a resource responsible for investigating reports of older adults age 60 and above who are at risk for abuse, neglect, exploitation, and extortion. Of course, our loved ones with any type of dementia are extra vulnerable to scams, to you name it. So having this service is important for us to be able to report to if we feel that someone is at risk. So I have their phone number there too. All righty. So next up, we're going to talk about many different educational programs that are available to support you. I tell caregivers all the time, you don't know what you don't know. And caring for someone with dementia doesn't always come naturally to us. Usually it is something you have to learn. It is skills that you have to acquire sometimes. So in these instances, we need to equip ourselves with information about the disease that our loved one has and learn strategies to allow us to be better caregivers. And a lot of times, like I said, it's not naturally, so you do kind of have to learn something about it. So at Alzheimer's Services, we offer many different educational programs that I'm going to talk about. And then there are many, many other ones available through a lot of different nonprofits that I'm also going to go over. So Lunch and Learn is our virtual education series that we have here that experts present on topics relating to dementia. We have all sorts of different topics like redirection techniques, depression, delirium, and hallucinations, managing public outings. The list goes on and on. We have many of our past presentation topics on our YouTube channel. I'm also going to talk about that a couple of times. This series goes from January to September, so that's at least 10 presentations a year that are completely free, virtual, on our YouTube channel. You can access them at any time, and you can always suggest topics to us. So if you notice that we haven't talked about a particular topic that you're interested in or that your loved one is dealing with, you can let us know and we'll find an expert that can talk on it. Next up, we have our ADAPT series. That's another educational program that we have that focuses on adaptive approaches to caregiving for those with dementia. These presentations support and educate on relatable and practical modifications for everyday care. Some of our previous topics include adaptive language, adaptive bathing and grooming, adaptive eating habits. We actually have another one, our last one for the year, coming up next week, and that is adaptive diet and delaying dementia through your diet. So we have all sorts of interesting topics. A lot of those are on our website as well, on the YouTube channel. Hold on, I just got a message. Make sure I'm talking loudly enough. Okay. All right, and then of course our Making Sense of Sense program that you're attending right now, that is our financially focused presentation. Dementia, as you all know, is a very costly disease. I've seen reports that say Alzheimer's is the most expensive disease you can have in America. And so it's more expensive than cancer, it's more expensive than heart disease. And as unfortunate as it is that we even have to consider finances as you're dealing with all of those other aspects of the disease, it is the reality of it. And so we can better situate ourselves as caregivers if we prepare as much as we can financially. So that's why we host these presentations as well. A lot of our Making Sense of Sense presentations are up on our YouTube channel as well. So if you wanted to access any past topics, that's a good space to do it. We host an annual education conference. That is one of our biggest, longest events that we host. And our next one is coming up on April 17th. That is a full day conference. It usually has a cost for about $50 for a family caregiver. But no family is ever turned away if cost is the only thing that's keeping them away from entry. This past year, we had free tickets for some of our Charlie's Place families, and we hope to continue lowering the entry costs for current caregivers as years go on. But that is a great educational opportunity if you're able to get away from caregiving for a day to learn some good info that you could use day to day. The 36-hour day is a resource book that we provide to each family in our service area. So if you haven't heard of this book before and we haven't given it to you, definitely let me know. I'll give you one before the end of the day today, or I'll mail one out to everybody on Zoom. I like to refer to this book as the how-to guide to caregiving. It talks about pretty much anything that you'll deal with throughout the disease process. So if you haven't received it yet, I definitely encourage you to do so. It's a great educational tool just to keep in your arsenal. Some other great educational resources are some other nonprofit organizations that I'm going to touch on briefly. Alzheimer's Association and Alzheimer's Foundation of America have incredible caregiver resources on their websites. They have resource pages on wandering, on sundowning, any topic that you can think of that you might experience within your loved ones. Both of these organizations they have just robust catalogs of information if you wanted to have a space to go to virtually. For those who have loved ones diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, there is a whole nonprofit dedicated just to support those folks. That is the Lewy Body Dementia Association. Those folks are so nice over there, and if your loved one is specifically dealing with that dementia, highly suggest for you to connect with them as well. Likewise, for frontotemporal degeneration, or FTD, the nonprofit, the Association for Frontotemporal Degeneration, is an excellent free educational resource for those families. All of these organizations, including us, have helplines as well, where you can call in and ask questions to a dementia professional. I'm going to speak on helplines a little bit later, but as we're talking about these educational resources, I did want to mention that too, that it's not just the website. You can call in and talk to a live person as well. Continuing on with education, these are all free education opportunities available to families. The Caregiver Action Network's Family Caregiver Toolbox is a really great educational tool that provides information on, you name it. Some of the ones I was most interested in are the basics of caregiving, juggling a job and caregiving. And long distance caregiving. Sometimes you can't find a ton of information about those very niche topics, but they have a whole toolbox on their website for that specifically. That's their website right there. Highly recommend checking that out. The next website is the Education Center within Alzheimer's Association. I talked about them on the last slide. They have a whole training center on their website that's both for professionals and for family caregivers. But an entire catalog of videos that you can watch, different principles. So highly suggest checking that out too. And then I also wanted to mention another educational series, which is the Meaning and Hope Institute, which has a 10-week discussion series that is free for caregivers. If any of y'all know one of our, he's a board member, he's a very active volunteer, John Kovich. He's also a former caregiver. He recommends this book that this series is based off of to anybody. I've heard him recommend it to myself 3 or 4 times. So highly recommend this discussion series that is off of the book Loving Someone Who Has Dementia by Pauline Voss. And that is also free for caregivers. All right, rounding out our educational resources, because I know I've talked about a lot of them. Powerful Tools for Caregivers is a really neat resource for caregivers who find themselves doubting their caregiver abilities. I find I talk to a lot of people and it sounds like they're working on themselves and trying to help somebody else. So this is a great service for those folks. They have virtual classes on reducing stress, communicating your feelings, making tough decisions. I have their website here as well. That is just a really great tool to have in general, but specifically for a caregiver. And lastly, I have some YouTube channel recommendations. As you can tell, I really like YouTube. And I like it a lot for a dementia caregiver because it's so convenient. You can watch it when you need it. It's there at whatever time is most convenient for you. Dementia Unplugged is a series produced by Dementia Society of America, and then of course our own YouTube channel, which is not super glamorous. It's just a bunch of videos of these types of presentations, but the material is there. And so highly recommend subscribing to those and checking those out whenever you find yourself ready for some info. All righty, so we have talked about education, and I definitely think that that is a crucial part of successful caregiving, is kind of having a good foundation in that regard. But if a caregiver isn't cared for, then we're not approaching caregiving the right way. We need a strong foundation with the caregiver to properly support somebody. So that is where a lot of these resources are coming in. We have a ton of stuff that we do here at Alzheimer's Services. One of those is our support groups. We have 11 different meeting times per month all over our service area. Some of those are virtually, some are in person. So if you find that you want to connect with other current caregivers and talk about your experience, learn from other caregivers what their experiences are, that is a great place to do that from local folks. And we are also very happy to refer you to local professionals who specialize in caregiver support. I know support groups are not everybody's jam, so if you really want to talk to someone one-on-one, we're happy to refer you to a specialist locally. One of those people that we refer to often is Rose Colley. She is a licensed clinical social worker for over 40 years. She's been doing social work. She specializes in caregivers and those diagnosed with dementia. And she's a long-term volunteer of ours too. So we are a big fan of her. And if we find, as we're talking with you, that you could benefit from a meeting with her, we have a service where we can pay for your first meeting with her as well. Next up, I'm going to talk about Family Services of Greater Baton Rouge. That is a local nonprofit that offers counseling services at a sliding scale rate. As unfortunate as it is that not every health insurance will pay for counseling services, this is a great nonprofit that allows affordable counseling service to everybody. So they have many different counselors that work there, and they specialize in different topics. So if you're interested in that, you can call them and tell them what you're most interested in talking about. So you could say, I'm interested in talking about depression or anxiety or my caregiver stress, and they would be able to connect you with that appropriate counselor there. And then I want to talk about the National Council of Dementia Minds. This is a very unique nonprofit. It's probably not going to be accepted or applicable for every person that's in this meeting, but for those who are appropriate for it, it's a really unique nonprofit. And it is an organization for people diagnosed with dementia, ran by people diagnosed with dementia. It's a very unique service that I can imagine if I was diagnosed with dementia, I would want something like this. So they're not local. They're, I believe, out of Michigan, but a lot of their stuff is virtual. All of their support groups, they have a ton of different support groups that you can find on their website. Just some of them are physicians living with dementia, Black Dementia Minds, a Brotherhood of Dementia Minds, and more. So if your loved one is, interested in having a space to where he can speak to people who are in a similar situation as they are, this would be a great nonprofit for that. And then, of course, I briefly mentioned helplines earlier where you can call in to a number where dementia professionals are able to support you. There are many, many different free helplines. We have one. Alzheimer's Association has one. AFTD has one. Lewy Body Dementia Association has one. And there are even more. I have a list of all of those within our resource library that you can grab before you leave today, or I'm happy to email it to anybody that kind of has it all in one place. And we also have some different local social worker and LPC referrals on there too, if you were looking for somebody who specializes in caregiver support. All right, moving on to medical support. While there are not many advancements in the medical side of dementia, there are at least a few programs that we can use as resources to support us through the journey. One of those that is kind of gaining popularity over time is in-home primary care. And that is where you can meet with a primary care physician in your home. This is 2 local companies that do that. There may be more. I know there used to be another doctor who did it who moved out of state, but these are 2 that are currently doing this service, and it should not cost any more than your regular copay. So if you're interested in those types of services, if that's just easier for you and your loved one who's not necessarily appropriate for something like hospice yet, then it could be a good thing to check out to just make it more convenient for you and your loved one to be in the same environment during your doctor's appointment. And then I also want to mention Sage Outpatient. That is a local rehabilitation hospital that has a really unique dementia program. I have their website up here. Their program lasts for 12 to 16 weeks, and the goal is to help the individual that has dementia to maintain independence within their home or their community as long as possible. And what they'll do is they'll do an assessment of your loved one, and they will do a tailored treatment plan holistically that increases focus on family involvement, home safety, family training, and education. So that is a really neat local resource that we have that I don't think a lot of people know about. And we are big fans of their social work team over there. They refer to us a lot. They're very intentional on the care of their folks that they help. Another medical service that you may hear of often is home health. That is a service that is ordered by your physician that can help with things like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. You might get a home health order after you need help navigating a new medical equipment piece like a walker or a cane. They might order home health for that. You can always ask your home health or your primary care physician or whoever you go and see for your medical care. You can ask them if your loved one is appropriate for home health. That is something that's covered by your medical insurance. It can help with fall prevention if your loved one is having trouble with balancing or swallowing. A lot of these things can be helped through home health. So definitely something to consider. Likewise, hospice is a great medical service available. I know that many people hear the word hospice and they have a lot of misconceptions about what that means. I could talk about hospice forever, but we have a past lunch and learn on hospice, kind of the realities of hospice, debunking some of those myths that you might hear about hospice. And hospice is 100% covered by your medical insurance. They can provide things like incontinence supplies, medical equipment, assistance with bathing, medication management, social work services, spiritual services. The list goes on and on. So if your loved one is appropriate for something like hospice, it's definitely something worth it just to check out. Lastly, I want to mention as a part of the medical support, the Senior RX program that I mentioned earlier, that is a program that can assist with discounted prescription drugs. It is always worth it to ask if you can get a discount. You don't need to be too proud to ask about getting a discount for some expensive drugs. So this is just one of those programs that can help. And then I know a lot of different big manufacturers can, if you call the manufacturer directly, you can usually speak with them about reduced costs as well. Alrighty. Hope I'm keeping up with y'all. Hopefully y'all are not glazed over yet. I know it's a lot. Okay, next up we're going to talk about caregiver respite. We all need a break at times. I'm a mom of a 2-year-old. I need a break at times, but I know a dementia caregiver definitely needs a break. It is a 24-hour job plus. And here are some programs that can help with that. So respite reimbursement is one of our programs at Alzheimer's Services. It's available to almost everybody that lives in our service area. The only exceptions are if you live in a facility or if you have long-term care insurance. But I can talk about all of those specifics, but most people qualify for this service, and it allows for $600 a year towards the cost of hiring a professional caregiver. And that's not a ton of money, but every little bit helps, and that is a program that we are actively adding people to. And also, it is in the plan for us to increase that amount in years to come. So definitely a program to check out if you're hiring sitters or caregivers. Why not just add a little something to it? Charlie's Place is our day respite center. We have two. We have one that is connected to our office over here, and then we have one in Gonzales. One thing that I want to mention about Charlie's Place is we never ever turn anybody away due to cost. It normally costs about $65 a day for somebody to attend Charlie's Place, but we have extremely generous donors that no one has ever been turned away and they cannot afford it. So if for some reason that's an issue, you just let us know and we will figure it out. Our center, Charlie's Place, is open from 9 to 3, and it is specifically designed for the caregiver during that time to get a break. And your loved one is in a fun, safe environment. Yesterday, they had a washboard player here. So, I mean, they were all dripping in sweat from dancing. So we have a good time over there. But I definitely want to mention Charlie's Place. I also want to mention, again, the Medicaid services that we talked about earlier, the home and community-based services, if you are qualified for Medicaid. The PACE program is definitely something to consider if you are eligible for it and your loved one needs an adult day center, maybe something even more than Charlie's Place if they need more of a medical side of things. That could be a great option for you to check out, and it is covered by Medicaid. So definitely something to consider. If your loved one with dementia or their spouse is a veteran, please do not forget to look into their aid and attendance benefits. We have some really great contacts with the VA that I'm happy to share with anybody that needs, some guidance within that application process. But I know that's something easy to forget about, so definitely don't forget about that. And then I also mentioned hospice a little bit earlier. Another benefit that you can request from hospice is a volunteer. I was a hospice volunteer, and so that is somebody that can come to your home or to the facility that your loved one lives at and just help with small tasks. Either they can help you with something, or they can just sit with your loved one. I know whenever I was a hospice volunteer, I would sit and read to people, or I would help them move to activities around their care facility. Or I would just sit with people sometimes. Sometimes you just want a little company. And so if you have hospice, that's also just another extra step that you can add if you're village, another person there to help support you, and you can build good community with them. And then lastly, on this slide, I want to mention another nonprofit that I'm a big fan of, Hilarity for Charity. They have, it's another great nonprofit to kind of follow for education, but they have a grant program with Home Instead, which is they have a local office, but it's a national in-home caregiver service, a professional caregiver agency. And Hilarity for Charity has a grant with Home Instead that they can help pay for caregivers. So it's an application process that you have to go through that nonprofit, but I definitely wanted to mention that as well. If that's something that you're interested in, at least you know about it. Okay, here's some more financial support resources, specifically for folks who have these different qualifications. AFTD, which is the Association for Frontotemporal Degeneration, they have some really great grants on their website through their association for people who are diagnosed with FTD. So if that is your loved one, definitely check into these. They have really great resources there for that specific type of dementia. Likewise, the Parkinson's Wellness Fund, if your loved one also has a diagnosis of Parkinson's, that could be a helpful website for you to check out. And then I also lastly wanted to mention on here, if you happen to be an emmeticist, they have a home health and a hospice. If you happen to be an emmeticist patient, they have some grant programs available as well. So you can speak to whoever your contact is there. And I just wanted to mention that to anybody who currently uses their service. I'm a big fan of emmeticist. They have a whole dementia program within their training, but just something for us to mention. And if you have a different home health or different hospice, possibly ask them if they have any grant programs that they allow for things like caregiver respite that could support you. And then, of course, one more shout out to veteran services to not forget to utilize these benefits. I know, especially if I was the person doing it, I wouldn't know where the heck to start. There's a lot of documents, especially if it's for my grandparent. Some of that stuff could be, hidden away. I would never know where to start. It seems like a mountain, but I'm happy to connect you with some of the folks that we know over there just to try to get that in order. They can help pay for some of your medical costs. They can help pay for a private caregiver to come into your home or a care facility. So definitely something to look into if that's appropriate to you. And then regarding legal services, I speak with many families who have questions about estate planning, power of attorney, long-term care planning. And I usually would recommend for them, if it's very detailed, to speak with a professional of some type, like an elder law attorney. That is actually one of the benefits of this series, the Making Sense of Sense series, is if you attend all 3 sessions, you get a free consultation with an elder law attorney. So planning for your assets to work with you as much as possible. And the future regarding Medicaid long-term care eligibility, it can be tricky. I know we've had presentations on it before, and some of that just goes right over my head. So sitting one-on-one with somebody and having them talk to you about your assets, and if you need to do something different with it, could definitely be helpful. So I also have an entire resource list of some local elder law attorneys and some different just legal stuff in general that I'm happy to provide anybody if they have questions with that. All right, we are wrapping up with the fun stuff. I have a list of many free resources around our service area. And just keep in mind that some of these are for you to do with your loved one with dementia, and then some of these are for you to do on your own. As a part of caregiver respite, allowing yourself the opportunity to have time to enjoy your hobbies or create a new hobby is definitely something that I want to encourage through this section. If you didn't know that Brook has a very happening senior schedule. They really do. It's called their adult leisure events. They have so much stuff going on for adults 55 and up. This is their website that you can see their schedule. They have dances, they have exercise, they have crafts, they have so much fun stuff. So if you're in the greater Baton Rouge area, definitely something to check out. Looking into your church community can also be a really great space to build a community around you. Probably you've gone to church with some of these people 30 plus years and never knew that y'all had commonalities. So if they have something like a seniors group or an older adult group, it could be something that could help with building a village. Many churches have different groups like this. These are just two that I grabbed and put up here because I was impressed by how much they have going on. So First United Methodist Church in Baton Rouge, they have some knitting clubs, they have a men's coffee club, they have a ladies group that does little service projects. I would be a member of that. That sounds so fun. And then First Baptist Church in Zachary has a prime timers group, and they go on trips. They do all sorts of fun stuff. So if that's something that you're looking for to kind of join in with community, with other folks, looking to your church possibly could be a great option. I was just talking about Ollie at LSU. I'm a big fan of that service as well. I've heard just so much positive feedback from participants about Ollie and what that is. These are classes and experiences for people 50 plus who enjoy being a lifelong learner or who enjoy being around other people who are lifelong learners. And so they have different programs and so much stuff at Ollie. So if that's something that you're interested in, it does have a small cost to it, but I promise it's much less expensive than my college tuition at LSU. So could be something to look at if that's something that you're wanting to do. All right, and this is my last slide. And I wanted to add some things in here because it's not always realistic for you to want to join a brand new community. It's not always desirable for you to want to join a whole new group of people whenever you're so busy caring for you and your loved one. So here's some things that you can do with your loved one that kind of no hassle. There are a ton of different events around our service area that is free on the first Sunday of the month. This is just a small list of them, but looking up to seeing if if your loved one has an interest in art, and first free Sunday, no excuse not to go. We go to the LSU Museum of Art for some of our arts and Alzheimer's events, and it's always a big hit. So here's just some of those first free Sunday events that you can do. Independence Park, not too far away from here, has a sensory garden. That sounds like a great field trip to me with my loved one, especially if you just want to get outside in a little bit warmer weather than this, but and just enjoy a park. That could be a great option. For some virtual options would be the AFA, that's Alzheimer's Foundation of America. They have the Teal Room, which is their whole, it's a full website of therapeutic activities that are virtual. So they have music, they have crafts, they have exercise. They have one really cool one called Laughter Yoga. So if you're looking for something more for inside the home, like on days like today, where you just need to do something and you don't want to go outside, that could be a great option for you to do together. And then of course, we do a ton of stuff here for you and your loved one to experience together, or for if you have a sitter or a family member that wants to bring your loved one and you take a break during that time, this is also a great opportunity. We have 4 TLCs a year. We have our Arts and Alzheimer's events, and then we have a Fall Fest. Wanted to shout that out. That's coming up this coming month on November 15th. So if anybody wants to join us in Fall Fest, we are accepting registrants now. So those are all free events that you can join in with your loved one and just kind of break up the monotony and have something to look forward to. Be in community with other people who know what you're dealing with is always good. So I'm just going to close out with another thought, and then I'm going to kind of open the floor. Dementia, I hear very often, can be very isolating, not only for the person that has dementia, but for the caregivers as well. And so I'm hoping through this presentation, you see that there are a lot of programs available to support you, and that there are, programs available to encourage you, that can help benefit you and kind of walk with you through the journey of dementia. The only thing that can really make our situation better is if there was a cure. But taking things as we can, just knowing that there are programs around that are here to help us out through the journey, and that there is a whole village around you to walk that journey with you. So that concludes my presentation. I'm going to open up the floor now. If anybody has any questions, you can enter them in the chat box, or if I missed anything, any programs that have been very supportive to you, go ahead and fire away. Yes.
Is there any type of program that would evaluate a patient for level of care, where to help assist with getting that person to the appropriate level of care?
So seeing like what they actually need assistance with. Okay. I would think probably one, going to the doctor. They probably can recommend for home health to come in. That would be a nurse that would come in and do an evaluation, and then they could refer different services for that person based on their activities of daily living and what they need support with. I know it can be really difficult if you don't live with the person all the time to know where the gaps are. But home health probably is a great place to start if that person is not monitored around the clock, and kind of where you wouldn't know where things are gaps. Any questions through the chat? Nope. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I can kind of wrap it up here. I'm going to send a follow-up email out that's going to have this presentation in it, and it'll have links to a bunch of the stuff that I talked about. And of course, I'm always here. We have a whole program staff that is myself, Ellen, who is our director and social worker, and then Sherelle, who does a ton of the same stuff that I do. And then we have wonderful interns. I do want to give a shout out to my intern, Caitlin here. She, Catherine, sorry. We have another Caitlin. Catherine helped me a lot with this presentation. And so we have a whole team here to support you. So that concludes our event today. If nobody has any questions, I can close it out. Thank y'all for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.